when you have followed my YouTube channel, you will perhaps know that I was busy with, say, making a shortwave radio without a tuning capacitor. And I mean a super heterodyne radio. So not a reflex radio or a TRF radio, but a super heterodyne. Well, this is my first idea and approach. There's no tuning capacitor here, but only here a knob, and to that knob there is connected a ferrite rod. That's here. This is that ferrite rod. And when I push the ferrite rod in and take the ferrite rod out, there is a frequency deviation. That's completely logical when we look at radio theory. This is only, say, the first vlog, and in the future, perhaps after a few days or so, I will publish the schematic of this first setup. Now it is perhaps interesting to show how it works, and this is, say, a field effect transistor oscillator, and here we have that knob, and when I take, by the way, inside here there is that ferrite rod, exactly the same as here, but I have, say, immersed it with a piece of paper to make that it smoothly goes in and out to the coil. And when we change the inductance of the coil, there is of course a frequency change. So what's more to tell about it? Well, I have shielded the local oscillator here. The whole circuit is the same as I have published earlier in my YouTube videos. There is here a 12-volt regulator, but important to tell, and I will publish the schematic as soon as possible. I also, say, in a certain way, align the current to that local oscillator, and it helps to tune in a precise, more precise way. I'm going to talk about it in the future anyway. Now it's only, say, the first ideas. Like I told in the earlier video, this will be more or less the front end here, and here is the local oscillator. Well, here we see that knob. Of course, looks a little bit stupid, but anyway, it works. So I push here the ferrite rod in, take it out, push it in, take it out, and let's see what's happening. We are now on 9.8 megahertz, and this is the waveform. I did a lot of experiments during this day to get the waveform as pure as possible. So let's see. I push it now here. Let's look at the sine wave. The frequency of course changes. And this is coarse. And we are now on 9.0 megahertz for the local oscillator. That's what I mean, the local oscillator. That local oscillator is of course for a big part responsible for how such a superhet can work. Anyway, so here, and I've made a few switches here. I will publish the circuit as soon as possible. Also made a switch to which we can get to the lower frequency band, and that's now here. This is the waveform, and again I paid a lot of attention to get the waveform as pure as possible. We are now on 3.0 megahertz with a good waveform, and I also made that, say, precise tuning of the local oscillator. Perhaps you can see it here a little bit. On higher frequencies this will have more effect, but we can read here 3.086, 3.896, etc, etc. My camera starts to flicker, so I have to be quite quick. Let's go to the higher frequencies. We are now on 8.9 megahertz with that waveform, also beautiful waveform. And I turn now, say, the fine tuning of the frequency by, say, adding a lower voltage to the field effect transistor oscillator. So let's see what happens. Of course, the deviation is higher on higher frequencies. Completely logical when we look at the radio theory. So you can see here how it moves now, and here you can see the frequency change. 9.02, and try to make it somewhat smaller. 8.97, so 8.97, and with fine tuning we are on 9.02. Of course, this is, say, a kind of simple way to do all these things, but anyway, I hope it will work nice in the future. I will publish the schematic as soon as possible. Well, of course, the local oscillator needs shielding here. It's made with tin plate. Here is the 12-volt stabilizer, and furthermore there's not so much more to tell about this. Say the heart of a shortwave radio. That is the local oscillator. It must be stable. When it is not stable, there are peculiar things that will happen, and it is here in this case quite stable. Anyway, and I mean especially for, say, the normal broadband radio stations. Say there are on shortwave radio stations with an extremely small bandwidth, and you can receive them with this kind of local oscillator, but on the other hand, could be that in that case you need a more stable oscillator, a crystal oscillator, etc, etc. Thanks for watching. Only a first idea and a first vlog. When I have time in the week, I will show the exact schematic. So for everyone who likes to do these radio experiments. Thanks for watching again. And let's look again at the beautiful waveform. Here it changes by taking the ferrite rod out, pushing it in, get to another frequency, etc. That was all.